This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman and Riley Smith. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Dustin Hoffman.
Good day, everybody, and welcome to Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Huffman. Today is Tuesday, August the 2nd, 2022. We're so glad you could join us. Coming up in today's show, I visit with Kip Eideberg of the Association of Equipment Manufacturers, talking about the recent passage of the CHIPS Act and what that means for the future. I also take a look at your ag weather outlook, but first, let's run down those markets. It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at Agmarket Net. We're at the end of the trading day for Tuesday, and we turn to Jacob Burks of Agmarket Net. Jacob, looked a little red there on the screen this afternoon. What did we see?
Dustin, it was a very negative day, just the opposite of what we saw yesterday with a close that was pretty optimistic, in my opinion. Today, we're looking at the close going into the last few minutes of trade here, making new lows down. December corn, $5.92.5, down 17 cents on the day. Beans are still a little bit off their lows, but we're having a 20 to 25 cent lower day across the complex. A little bit of mixture in the products of the soybeans. We see the bean oil in December trading about $1.80 lower right now, a 61.40 area, with the soybean meal strong. And if you've paid attention to the soybean meal market, that's been quite a ride. We saw a lot of extra premium put in here at the end of last week, and then we took it all out early this week, and now we're starting to get a little choppiness in the soybean meal as well. Wheat market still taking it on the chin, 20 to 25 cents lower at this point here. So a lot of risk off in the grain market.
Of course, there's a lot of factors that are probably contributing to that. What are the biggest ones so far here today?
Well, if you've paid attention to any type of news story at all, I think everybody became aeronautical engineer expert here today, trying to track Nancy Pelosi's plane. Evidently, it did land in Taiwan. The only logical thing that I've really heard about this, to be honest with you, I don't try not to get into anything political. I look at, hopefully the government knows stuff that I don't know, and I don't know everything that's going on. I'm thinking that some sort of factors in that China has been talking about Taiwan for a long time, and that's the reason that we went over there. Hopefully to maybe not infuriate things, but maybe help solve some problems. That's the positive thing I'm going to look at. That's the main thing in the news, and I think that's that's something that we'll talk about a long time from now, about how this day happened and what was going on and the reasons for it. But inevitably, you worry about China demand. What it really boils down to from an ag market standpoint, and what we talk about here, is the fact that we hope that China still continues to import our products and doesn't look at any type of tax situation, tariff situation with us and what we get from them.
All right, and as we look to the livestock side of things, usually when the grains go down, livestock rebounds and enjoys that. Did that happen again today, or is it just those geopolitical things affecting the markets across the whole board?
To talk about that, you look at some of the outside markets too. So a lot of times when we talk about having just a negative macroeconomic deflationary situation, we look at everything going down. Stock market was only down 200 points. You get the dollar was up significantly, up 71 points. But your crude oil was up 80 points right now. So it wasn't just a total deflation of all commodities. But as far as the livestock goes, obviously feeder cattle want cheap feed. And usually when they get cheaper feed on the day, it's an immediate inverse relationship, and we go higher in feeder cattle. It just doesn't always happen that way. And there's outside factors looking at, hey, are we going to be able to sell the beef? We typically have a seasonal downward push right here for the feeder cattle, and that seemed to overweigh the fact that we were down 15 to 20 cents. So we ended up looking at feeder cattle down $1.50 to $1.70 in the front months, and down 60 to 70 in some of the back months. Live cattle stayed pretty nonchalant. I mean, I think Brian said it this morning that we just stayed steady, and we just haven't had a whole lot of action in that live cattle trade. Cash markets, pulled back a little bit, and it's just been pretty flat, and we haven't done a whole lot for several months. You look at the hog market. We did have some strength out there in the hogs, and it's a cheaper product. That stuff is, hopefully we're going to be able to see, some continued selling in the back months, and then to the from the demand side of things, we continue to sell the product. So that's something that's been positive. The front months have kind of steadied out a little bit. The August hogs are getting comfortable around that 120 level right now. But no, it's from a macroeconomic standpoint, I felt like it was a decent day. We didn't just blast anything and kill it off there.
All right, Jacob. Well, if folks out there want to talk about some of their marketing strategies, maybe change their plans, maybe make new plans altogether, how do they get in touch with agmarket.net?
Well, first of all, I do encourage all the producers to get busy with doing something here. We are in a spot where there's some active things that we need to take care of and make sure we got some marketing in place. But to look at us, just go to our website there, agmarket.net. Sign up for a 30-day free trial. If you want to talk to me directly, 608-384-5438.
All right, Jacob. Well, thank you very much, and we appreciate the insight. And I hear we're talking to you again on Thursday.
You bet, Dustin. Look forward to it. See you Thursday.
That again was Jacob Burks of Agmarket.net. Let's run down those closing numbers, courtesy of the folks at Bar Chart. September corn was down 15 3/4 at $5.91 and a quarter. December new crop down 15 1/2 at $5.94 and a quarter. August soybeans down 25 cents at $15.69 and a quarter. November new crop down 19 1/2 at $13.86 and a half. Soy meal up $4.50 at $434.20 per ton. Soy oil $1.76 lower at $62.33. December Chicago wheat down 25 cents at $7.94 even. Minneapolis down 23 1/2 at $8.86 3/4. Kansas wheat down 23 3/4 at $8.50 and a quarter. December oats down 19 1/4 at $4.16 even. October live cattle down 50 cents at $142.12. August feeders down $1.52 at $178.12. August lean hogs down 60 cents at $119.85. Pork cutouts down 25 cents at $125.72. Class 3 milk up a penny at $20.47. And that's been our Ag Market Recap. We're going to take a short break here on Ag Matters PM and hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soy Checkoff. When we come back, I visit with Kip Eideberg of the Association of Equipment Manufacturers. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
Welcome back to AEM PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Huffman. I had the chance to sit down Friday with Association of Equipment Manufacturers Kip Eideberg. We talked about the passage of the CHIPS Act in the House of Representatives on Thursday. Now, what does that mean going forward? Well, we talk about that right now. We're talking with Kip Eideberg of the Association of Equipment Manufacturers. Kip, thanks for taking a few minutes to talk with us today.
You bet, Dustin. Always great to be with you.
So we're talking about a survey you just conducted, and it kind of relates into that semiconductor bill. Kind of tell us what's going on and where things are and what you found out.
Yeah, you bet. So we surveyed 100 CEOs of small, mid-sized, large, and multinational equipment manufacturers from across the country. And a couple of the findings that really stood out to us is that 3 in 4 CEOs believe that investment in domestic semiconductor research and development is critical to the country and the industry's long-term economic growth. And more importantly, perhaps, 7 in 10 CEOs said that with additional federal investment in U.S. semiconductor production, they will create more equipment manufacturing jobs, which obviously is good news for our industry, good news for our country. And in light of yesterday's developments in Washington, we are feeling pretty optimistic about the short and long-term outlook for our industry.
And we know that the semiconductor issue has been a problem for implements as well as trucks, cars, everything that relies on them, which as we found out during this situation with the supply chain, a lot of stuff relies on those semiconductors.
Yeah, they sure do. And whether it's trucks or skid steers, right, and anything in between, it doesn't matter if there are 500, 1,000, or 10,000 components in a piece of equipment. If one of them is missing, well, that piece of equipment is not leaving the factory and heading out to customers. So it is absolutely critical. And another finding that we saw from our CEO survey is that more than 6 in 10, more than 60% of those CEOs surveyed said that the shortage of semiconductors has been absolutely critical to these delayed productions that our industry has been facing. Critical is perhaps the wrong word here. The fact that we are not getting enough semiconductors is why so many of these delays that many of your viewers and listeners have been experiencing, whether it's farmers or dealers, is due to the lack of semiconductors. So the fact that Congress was able to deliver a strong bipartisan win yesterday with the passage of the Chips and Science Act bodes well, not just for our industry, but for the country as a whole, Dustin.
All right, so now that heads for President Biden's desk, correct?
That's correct. And let's put it into context here, because I think it is important that we recognize that for far too long, we have seen too many family-sustaining jobs leave America. And with this bipartisan historic win yesterday, the passage of this bill, equipment manufacturers and other manufacturers are poised to, again, invest in workers, in communities, drive innovation, and ensure America's long-term economic competitiveness and national security. So this is a big win for not just our industry, but for our country as a whole, Dustin.
Now, obviously, we relied on China quite a bit for those semiconductors. Now, obviously, it was probably because it was cheap manufacturing, cheap labor. How is this going to affect things as we bring it home? Because obviously, we treat our workers better over here in the United States for the most part.
Yeah, and it's a really great question. I'm glad you asked it. I mean, we see this as critical to the long-term growth of not just our industry, but of American manufacturing, and having a secure and reliable supply of high-quality semiconductors made here in America is obviously going to be critical, because not only are we relying on a foreign country and a country that is not necessarily our friend, but we're also making sure that in the event of future supply chain disruptions, perhaps another pandemic or something else, we still have access to a steady stream of semiconductors, so that our production capacity doesn't grind to a halt or is held hostage, by a foreign country who is, trying to influence, and distort, our economy and our production capacity.
And what's it to be said for those people bipartisan, obviously, to get this done? Not often that's happening in this day and age. I mean, what does that say to the importance of this bill?
I think it speaks volumes to it, and obviously, we had 24 House Republicans join their Democratic colleagues in pushing this bill across the finish line. I think the flip side a little bit, Dustin, you and I have talked about this before, is that it's somewhat sad that 24 is heralded as a strong bipartisan showing. Obviously, we would have liked to have seen many more. That's due to a number of factors. But, we saw strong bipartisan support in the Senate, by today's standards, strong bipartisan support in the House. So I think it speaks volumes to the fact that, our lawmakers are recognizing that we need to make sure that we protect American manufacturing. We need to put ourselves in a position to compete globally with China. And going back to that survey, more than 80% of CEOs said that the responsibility of the American government really is to make sure that they advance policies that help ensure the long-term competitiveness of the United States vis-a-vis China. And fully 40% said that China right now, the Chinese Communist Party, I should clarify, is the greatest threat facing the United States, and that we need a robust economic and geopolitical response to it. So I think lawmakers are waking up to the fact that, more work needs to be done here.
Now, as much as we would like it to, it will not just flip a switch and come online when President Biden signs it. What are we looking at for a timetable, either to build new factories or get other factories up to specs and going?
Yeah, that's I think the million-dollar question that we're all asking ourselves. And based on what we were seeing, we're looking at a few years before I think this is going to have a meaningful impact on our industry, right? But the old saying about the best time to plant a tree, right? We better get going today, so that whether it's tomorrow or next year or 2 years from now, we're in a much better spot. So, and it should also be noted that several large, chip manufacturers have already started making plans for facilities in Ohio and Texas. So hopefully they're getting a running start on this, and we can start seeing some domestic chip manufacturing coming online sooner rather than later.
All right. Well, Kip, is there anything else you want to add on this topic for our Iowa listeners today?
Well, I think, and again, something that you and I have talked about before, right? This is obviously good news for equipment manufacturers, but it's really good news for farmers and ranchers as well, because obviously at the end of the day, our member companies who make, agriculture equipment, those are their customers. And by the way, not just farmers and ranchers, but really anyone who lives in rural communities. They are our customers, and not only that, but many of our industry's 2.8 million men and women live in rural communities and are our farmers as well as manufacturers. So this is good news for Iowa. It's good news for our farmers and ranchers who grow the food that we and the world depends on, and it's good news for rural communities as well, because a lot of these, a lot of our member companies, right, they're located in rural communities. This means they're going to create more jobs in rural communities, so that will strengthen those communities. And so, we should all be celebrating today that Congress delivered a big win, not just for manufacturers, but for rural communities across the country.
That again was Kip Eideberg of the Association of Equipment Manufacturers here on Ag Matters PM. Now let's take a look at your ag weather outlook. Well, it was definitely warmer today in Des Moines as that heat advisory came crashing in right after noon, and it's quite warm now. Not as warm as we expected it to be about a week ago. However, this weekend they were expecting cooler temperatures, and now they've heated up just a little bit more. Let's see what the National Weather Service has in store for the next 24 hours. Well, as we said just a few minutes ago, that cooler forecast that was handed out over the weekend has warmed up just a little bit. Now, today is still going to be mostly sunny and hot. Heat advisory in central and western Iowa. Now, the eastern part of the state could see just a few degrees cooler as we look for highs generally in the mid to upper 90s, but we could see again some low 90s in the east. Tonight, variably cloudy skies and warm, slight chance of some spotty thunderstorms around the state, and lows from the low 70s to around 80. And of course, with the crops not having those cooler nights, this can be a little bit more stressful for them as they're not able to relax from the heat. Now, coming up tomorrow, we'll see a little bit of a cool down, but not much. Variably cloudy skies, slightly cooler, with a moderate chance of thunderstorms and highs anywhere from the upper 80s to the low 90s. As we look at the affiliate weather map, you can plainly see that forecast from this weekend where we could see mid to upper 80s has backed off for tomorrow. As we look at Cherokee, sunny skies, a chance of a thunderstorm, 89. Shenandoah, the same, but 92. Des Moines, 93 with a chance of thunderstorms. Waterloo looking for mostly sunny skies, a chance of thunderstorms, and 91. Albia and Clinton both looking for some variably cloudy skies and highs around 92 with a chance of thunderstorms. And that's been your Ag Weather Outlook. And just like that, we're at the end of today's show. You can find all our content online at iowaagnet.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and on TikTok. You can also check out our YouTube channel where you can find past episodes of AEM PM. And you can also click that like button and subscribe, and even click the bell icon so you're notified every time we post a new video. You can find our free Twice Daily Market podcasts on Amazon, Apple, Google, Spotify, and Podbean. From the IRN studios in Des Moines, I'm Dustin Huffman. For Avery Haskell and Riley Smith, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.